Hey everybody, it's your pal Drew yet again. Trying to catch up on some episodes of random comics from my spinner rack. And actually, I'm cheating a little bit. This just came in the mail. I just ordered this giant size werewolf. And I've gotten in the habit of buying giant size books, even if I have them duplicated. And I'm not really one for Werewolf by Night. It's like I'm almost done collecting all the giant size. The only one I don't have, of course, is giant size X-Men, because I don't want to put a mortgage on the house. But I'm having fun. Although Marvel did reprint it recently for like $4.99 or $6.99, and I bought that, so it's pretty true to the original. Giant size is just fun. They were, when I started reading comics, I don't know, they were like 2 or 3 issues deep into several titles, and they were so exciting. And for double the cost of a regular comic, you got an extra long story, and then you got a reprint in the back. And a lot of times, in the case of Fantastic Four and others, Avengers and such, they would reprint a story from the Silver Age that actually involved a character from the opening story. I mean, the original story, the new one. And I love this format. And I mentioned before, the problem with the economy was after Nixon resigned, and then you had Ford. The economy was just all over the place. There was so much uncertainty. And then OPEC was, you could look up OPEC, it's a long story. They were making, there was an energy crisis, and then there was a paper shortage. So I think these would have lasted a long time if these were presented in a different time, a different year or a different decade even. So once in a while, though, you will see some cool stuff come out, like oh man, it was like 10 years ago they came out with Giant Size Invaders number 2, and they never had a second one. The first one came out in 75, same month as X-Men Giant Size. So they did a second one that was, and it was continuation in a sense, but it had just a 10-page story in the front by I think it was by Roy Thomas and Lee Weeks, which was great. And then the back was like reprints of the earlier Invaders story, and it was fun. I'm a sucker for that stuff. And so here we go. I'm going to get right to it. Okay, you go here and you go down. Okay, beautiful. Like I said, Kane was doing all these covers, and I don't show a lot of Silver Age comics because at this point, my channel's become mostly a Bronze Age channel, like Bronze Age and beyond, like sort of till, like from between 1970 and the late 90s. And so, like I said, just got, so I haven't even read it, but it's Doug Mensch who wrote Werewolf by Night for all 43 issues plus all the giant sizes. It was 5 of them. Now, this artist, Young Montano, I had never heard him before. I looked him up on the internet. I looked for him everywhere, and I could not find any such name. And Pablo Marcos and Paleo, I apologize if I'm saying it wrong, is the letterer. George Roussis, longtime colorist for Marvel since 1960s, colored all those villains purple and green that you saw. So this is pretty neat. Yeah, it's still pretty solid. Like I see, you say, I can't really talk. And how about that? Unfortunately, the gutters doesn't match up, but I'm sure. I mean, they already have wow, that's a great logo or lettering. They do have these in Marvel Masterworks now, but I don't know. I'm not that big into Werewolf by Night. I like these. So, he who rides the night winds lives again in the pages of Giant Size King Colt number 3. I love those things. I've said it before. When they reprint these giant size, why leave these out? It's just really cool stuff. I can't wait to read this. And I've said it before, my hang up with the Marvel horror titles is, in a lot of ways, they they were written by superhero writers who used sort of like the same vernacular, and it wasn't really convincing at times. And the other thing too, I mentioned this before, I wasn't into horror titles because in the 70s, Universal monsters were not really celebrated. You had so many parodies of it. You had like the Drac Pack or something like that. You had all these cartoons. You had movies where Elvis, what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. Abbott and Costello, not Elvis and Costello. That's where I got screwed up there. And it was all silly stuff. And then, like I said, there were cartoons, and there were live action ones that were silly, and then you had the Munsters. The Munsters really made me think monsters were silly. I love that show, but it was one of those things that ingrained in my head that, let's see if anybody famous sent the letter. Nope. No value stamp. I guess they stopped about that time. So, there was so much, that was my basis, and it wasn't until many, many years later that I understood the Universal monsters. Because also, bear in mind, back then, you had nostalgia, but you didn't have super strong geeky fans like myself and others that are into that kind of stuff. So the Universal monsters back then, just like a lot of stuff, it was just kind of, when it was done, it was done. They didn't do a lot of reflecting like you would see on like the on the Turner Classic Network. So anyway, really cool. It's got a spine roll. A lot of the books I got from different people have spine rolls, and I don't care. It's not horrible. So I'm going to this one. I remember buying this in Sharpsburg, Pennsylvania, which is, you get off Allegheny River Boulevard, you cross the bridge, and it's where my Aunt Pidgey lived. And there was a drugstore there. It had everything there. I mean, it had the pharmaceutical stuff. They had the over-counter stuff. They had toys. They had candy. They had comic books. And somehow they always had a comic book that I wanted. I mean, they were really good at that. They didn't even have that many. They had maybe like 10 on like a flat rack. But, Daredevil, he's one of my favorites because, he is a blind lawyer, and it's just a really cool, I don't know if dichotomy is the right word or not, and that costume is just so fantastic. Wally Wood designed it, and it's so simple and pure, and it's like, and even the issue before he came up with the red costume, Wally Wood added the double D onto the yellow and red uniform, so it's just so striking. I know he's had different costumes since, and the only one I really liked was Ron Wagner did one during Charles Soule's run on the book about 3 years ago or so, and that was very different, but it was very cool. So there we go, in 25 cents. Oh, real quick thing. So you had the druggist, and my grandmother sent me and my cousin Chris from Cleveland to get suppositories of all things, and we're like, our heads are like barely up to the counter because we're real little, and we're like, what are those for? And the guy behind the counter says, hey, you stick them up your ass. And then we're like, no, really, what do you use them for? So memories. Okay. Now, Bob Brown, he gets a lot of disrespect because he did the Avengers issues with the Avengers Defenders War. But the thing is, it was a bad fit. Not everybody does good team books. What is going on here? Why can't I focus? Hang on, everybody. There we go. But it's like Jim Mooney. It's like Jim Mooney when he did a couple fill-in issues on Avengers. It was so awkward and clunky. Yet Jim Mooney would do. I loved when he did Ms. Marvel. I thought he was exceptional at that. And then, like on team-up books, Jim Mooney his stuff just was too polite. And like his Supergirl stuff in the '60s was great. So I just think he was not. Bob Brown was not a super team artist. So you got Klaus Janson, man, the guy who made Daredevil so great for so many years, way before that Miller guy showed up. some white zipatone to give that ghost image. Now here's the thing. Bob Brown, he creates such great acting, and he does such great. His characters are great. Like you think you're in a courtroom, it's going to be boring, but look how dramatic it is. And especially with Klaus Janson, of course, provides a lot of that. And so guilty of murder in the first degree, even though it was more like a manslaughter, as far as I know. I knew I was going to get a fair trial. Manbull is always one of those characters I liked, although he's always been aimless. So look at those faces too. And because you're dealing with a single character. Bob Brown also did a couple issues of The Torpedo, which was a spinoff of this book, and he died fairly young from leukemia. Look at that. He does Rockefeller Plaza, and look how the posture. He has him swing almost like he's weighing himself. He's shifting into the swing. He's not just swinging wildly. And there's the golden bull that showed up in old issue of Thor. And value stamp, baby. I used to cut them up, but I never found them all, so... this guy, Peter B. Gillis is his name. Future writer for Marvel and DC as well. It's so cool to see that. That's just the stuff. How many artists can pull off that kind of thing with the neck? It totally works. Totally works. So, Bob Brown eventually retired. Well, he quit Daredevil, and then he did Torpedo, but it came out posthumously because leukemia had caught up to him, unfortunately. So we're going over to You're like, I'm looking at a blank screen. What the frick is going on? Manhunter, first issue special. I've mentioned this before, but they were all treated as first issues, because in the past, when you would get on a book or you start a new book, you would take over the numbering from a previous book that was filling, because that way the person who puts the comic on the newsstands, they think, oh, well, this book's been around for a while, but then in the 70s, when collecting really started getting big with Conan and, the Barbarian, and the first issues suddenly started to matter, and you had Jack Kirby's Fourth World. Well, first issue special is kind of like a sneaky title. I can't remember how many issues it ran. It ran about 10 issues or so, but Kirby contributed a lot to them, and he was just an idea man. He just kept, Manhunter originally, I think Kirby did it with Joe Simon in the 40s. I love it. Was it Greg Allman? Close up. So what they did, they just pasted this together, and Kirby had one foot out the door. She says August 1975, and shortly after this, he started working on Captain America. So, D. Bruce Berry. I like D. Bruce Berry. I know Mike Royer is supposed to be like the ultimate inker in this era, but I think D. Bruce Berry adds a little extra something. Man, like I said, Kirby comics used to scare the shit out of me because they were just so angry and brutal and harsh and chiseled, and I was just a little kid. Yeah. Yeah, some really cool stuff came out there. The only thing that survived was Warlord. Well, if you ever see Count Dante, he's kind of like the modern. No, he was kind of like he was Steven Seagal before Steven Seagal. Chris from Comic Tropes, his show on YouTube, he covered some of this. I think he did, and it's pretty hilarious. So, back also at this time, you'll notice that Kirby was doing the traditional comic thing where you separate into chapters. He did it back with Fantastic Four 1, You know, he just, and I always liked that. You know, Byrne did some of that when he started off writing and drawing. See, want to see the clash between Manhunter and the Hog? If so, write us and tell us. So, never happened, unfortunately. And we're going into Marvel Fanfare, number 40. David Mazzucchelli. This came out in 1980, so we're talking 2 years after Batman Year One, as well as, excuse me, Daredevil Born Again, and he totally changes his style completely, and it's brilliant. It is brilliant. It's just such a shock. I think this is 1988. Let me zoom in on you. Yep, 1988. So Ann Nocenti wrote it, and David Mazzucchelli, John Workman, of course. So you got like a really great team going on there. And David Hornling, I don't know who he is, but maybe he was a friend of Mazzucchelli's who Mazzucchelli directed or something like that, because he was taking more and more control over his own creations or his own pages. So this little old granny, she's reading the Bible, and the kid's kind of bored. You know, that Gabriel cat sounds cool. The way he booted Lucifer out of the kingdom and all. Oh yes, what a battle it must have been. And she goes on reading scripture, and he goes, boring, blah blah blah. And he goes, are you listening? Very inspiring. So he steals her change purse. Lord forgive me, I shall not resist. May I burn in hell, amen. And she's like, what are you doing? Oh, I was just holding your hand. It was just so moving what you said. So he heads out. What's that smell? I love the patterns there. But this is the same guy who did Daredevil Born Again. He did, it's just great. It's great cartooning. Really, really enjoyable. So she's ready to go outside, but then she has on the TV, she hears all these horrible stories on the news, and maybe I'd better stay inside. Did I always have so many lines on my face? I look like a road map. And what about that pain? Arthritis, or could it be cancer? Or my pain pills? So that's really cool there. That kind of puts me in mind of Jaime Hernandez, maybe, or one of the other brothers. Beautiful car. Oh, I wish I could just leave. So she's just basically a shut-in. She's terrified of the world, and she's had a lot of hard times in her life. And somebody crashes down, and Lord in heaven, Mary, Peter, Jesus, Joseph, bless me. Have I died and gone to my reward? These big, thick lines. That's awesome. I've been sent an angel. Oh, God, he's alive. I've touched an angel. Battle losing Mephisto. And Mephisto was fighting X-Men at the time. They had a miniseries called The Marvel Universe versus Mephisto. So this ties in. I mean, Ann Nocenti's a genius. She really does some great stuff. So she's kind of inspired. She finishes this piece of art that she was going to make into needlepoint. And she takes a feather. My word, to steal from an angel there. I really shouldn't have stolen it. So she took it out, she put it back in, even though it probably wouldn't matter. You must eat. Please wake up. Goes, you must eat something. Goodness gracious. Kissed by an angel. He's flying away. Hallelujah, get happy. She takes the radio, she takes some, what is that? Is that a toaster or something? Anyway, die monster. Beep boop boop boop. She's inspired to hit the road. That's so great. Now, this is Craig Hamilton, who I think he studied a lot of P. Craig Russell, and he's a personal friend of mine. And I can say that because he's a real good guy. So, Chris Claremont writer, Craig Hamilton, Rick Bryant inker, and it's just sensational stuff. Well, who did the coloring? Oh, Petra Scotis or something. I've seen the name before, and I just love how this comes out. This is magnificent stuff. Wow. And I've seen some of Craig's work up close, and it just gives you chills. So here is Craig Hamilton doing a Doctor Strange pinup that is just magnificent. And Shauna and Kazar, sweeping lines. Oof. Just so great. Yeah, Marvel Fanfare had a lot of crappy fill-in stories or leftover stories, but once in a while you'd see something ingenious like this. I think that's Craig also. I'll have to ask. I'm assuming, or else it would have said otherwise. Nice back cover. Yeah. Anyway, lastly, Marvel Premiere. This is before Steve Englehart and Frank Bruner took over the book. Marvel Feature, which initially showed the Defenders back in 71, 72. In the backup storyline, it was Return of Doctor Strange, because at the end of, I think it was like end of the short-lived 1960s series that he quit, and then he got back into it. He stayed with Defenders for a while, and then eventually he got his own book back, but it was not his own book. It was Marvel Premiere, which was their tryout book. And I can't remember the first couple who were the he was actually in the first one, I think. Yeah, Barry Windsor Smith drew it. It's all coming back to me. So and he only did that one issue, and Stan actually wrote it or scripted it, I don't know. Now here we go. Gardner Fox, a Silver Age legend at DC. He created so much fantastic stuff. And the artist, Irv Wesley, I was like, I have never heard of Irv Wesley. Inked by Don Perlin, always great inker. Based on concepts created by Robert Howard. But who was Irv Wesley? Well, he was Sam Queskin, the same guy who did a handful of comics. He did a couple issues of Submariner after Bill Everett died around 1973. And he also did one issue of Daredevil, which I've showcased before, issue 99, where Hawkeye comes back to take the hand of the Black Widow, Natasha. Like, she has no say in it, and the two of them fight, and she gets really pissed off. She's like, I'm not something that you fight over, and don't I have free will? So this is really interesting stuff, because it's so different, because you got Garner friggin' Fox. And he had, for this time, he decided to go into like H.P. Lovecraft sort of stuff. There was a lot of different monsters of that sort. And it's really cool. I love that hand. That's a great hand. I think Sam Queskin, his stuff, I've seen other stuff he's done, and it always looks different. Maybe it's the inker. I don't know. Maybe it's different inkers. That great texture there. The second panel almost looks Ditko-ish. But I don't think it's intentional. It's pretty brave to put a bunch of little lines on a face like that. It could easily get smushed, especially with the printing of the time. So I'm totally digging it. And that almost looks like a Wally Wood pose. I don't know. I wouldn't blame him if he borrowed a few of them, because all these characters, at least they should, Marvel and DC characters, they should have different stances. And I don't mean like maybe even stock poses to an extent, because like Doctor Strange would walk differently than, say, Spider-Man would, and differently than Captain America would. It's pretty much a trip, though. Garner Fox did a handful of them, and I guess they didn't go that well. And then Steve Englehart and Frank Bruner came and made Doctor Strange a huge seller, and they were doing exceptional work. So that's what made Doctor Strange graduate to his own title again. Only a rat would miss the claws of the cat. I want to be the guy who wrote that shit. It's just fun. It's silly. See, there's the cat. Which unfortunately didn't last very long, because female superheroes were not, it was still very much a boys' club, and female superheroes just really didn't sell back then, unfortunately. The first 3 issues came out, and then the 4th one, penciled by Ramona Fraden, it was never published until it was in some big collection that came out from Marvel a few years back. And and then Grant Greer, or Greer Grant, I can't remember her name, she became Tigra, the Werewoman, in the first issue of Giant Size Werewolf, or Chillers, or something like that. And costume laid around. Patsy Walker came across it. She had this long red hair, and she became the Hellcat, and it was perfect. It's kind of funny how you have, that's so weird, redundant ads. It's so weird if somebody comes out with a character that's almost there, and then somebody comes along like Englehart and George Perez, and they make Hellcat like an iconic character. And let's see, I'll get these real quick. Know ye these, the hallowed ranks of Marveldom, RFO, real frantic one, a buyer of at least 3 mags a month, TTB, Titanic True Believer, a divinely inspired no prize winner, QNS, quite enough sayer, a fortunate frantic one who's had a letter printed. I had a letter printed. Keeper of the Flame, one who recruits a newcomer to Marvel's rollicking ranks. PMM, Permanent Marvel at Maximus, anyone possessing all 4 of the other titles. FFF, Fearless Front Facer, an honorary title bestowed for devotion to Marvel above and beyond the Call of Duty. So I hope you like these. It was great looking at some of these again, and I can't wait to read that Giant Size Werewolf, because and especially because the art is so alien in a good way. Well, I hope you like this, and I wish you all a good evening, and take care. I'll be back.